Right, hello, and welcome back. So, after the first interview, you will see in that first recording, we got to know a little bit about my dear friend Anne. We had a brief intro into how life started out, her travels, different, jobs that she's done over the years, etc., etc. Now we come to the most treasured part of the interview. This is my favorite bit, where we get to talk about one of Anne's babies, her brainchild, Lex Lead. I don't even know where to begin when it comes to talking about this charity. I, again, will I beg your indulgence while I go on script because, like I said before, when you're dealing with exceptional individuals, I think exceptions need to be made. So, in order that I don't miss anything off that's vital, miss anything out rather, I will just read a brief introduction about the organization that Anne runs, Lex Lead. So it was founded in 2010 and it is staffed by volunteers. Since its inception, Lex Lead has administered an annual essay competition on topics of law and development for law students in the world's least developed countries with one-time prizes of $500. Anne yearly, or rather on a yearly basis, Anne fundraises a pool of awards from law firms and foundations, registers students across these countries, appoints a panel of international judges, of whom I am one, lawyers and ambassadors, and they all sit as judges of the incoming essays. She manages an advisory board, a team to check the essays. She awards the prizes, publishes the winning essays, and finally, after all that, continues to support these students in their further ambitions. To date, 147 awards have been made and over $75,000 have been awarded, including internships. So without further ado, let me hand the floor over to you, Anne Bodley. Anne, please do tell, how did this idea come about? What gave birth to Lex Lead?
It came out through, for about 5 years, I was running around as a director of an International Bar Association initiative that was an informal group. So the director title was not a formal title. It was so we were that had been the brainchild of one of the past presidents of the International Bar Association to bring the international legal community to the issues of poverty and development to see what that so that you're dealing we've continued that juxtaposition of two different fronts where you've got the legal side up against a more economic terrain.
Mm.
So that had been the idea of one of the past presidents of the International Bar Association, was to bring the international legal community to that. And I was working with a group at the IBA that was working with groups like the International Senior Lawyers Project, and organizing lunches and dinners to get behind. They were almost looking for a program. They were trying to do good things, and they're trying to sort of come up with a real program that would actually bring that together, to actually to concretize that idea of like, what can the international legal community do in this space, in this area. And it was in the course of that, so through this group, which was called the Global Challenge, I was helping them. I was very much the sort of on the ground person in Tanzania while I was with the UN, of bringing arbitration sessions to Tanzania, other sort of training programs, and rolling those out. And it was in the course of that um, actually through talking to one of the students that we were working with, that I had it just sort of came to me as an idea that I thought, why don't we run an essay competition? That would be, and I took that to the leadership of the global challenge of this group to say, this is something I can do single-handedly or almost single-handedly. And it gives, instead of bringing very qualified, brilliant people, but instead of putting the money into bringing people from down on airplanes, for and putting them up in nice hotels and that, what if we sort of turn the idea around and run this competition so that the money is going directly to students, and this is a way of funneling of deciding where the money goes, then you've got, and it also opens up, instead of it being a sort of a top-down scenario as to what should people do, what should we do in the world to address economic concerns, it gives people a whole different audience, a whole different group of people a chance to address that themselves. And for the students as well, it's quite a different exercise because most of the 99% of the students that come through our program are law students in some vein. They're not asked, in our law studies, we're also not asked to sort of pit legal concepts, like this year we're doing, environmental law. How does environmental law, the first one we ever started out with was the rule of law. How do you take the rule of law and see an economic impact from that law? And so it's really challenging the students as well to look at things in a very different way, because every single one of our questions will take a legal concept and pit it against how can this area of law, be that like child protection rights, or, as I said, environmental law, or we did do regulation of banking and finance or fintech. How can law in this area do something to reduce poverty, whether or not we address that specifically, but improve economic development
Mm-hmm.
in that. And so that's how it came about, was this little idea of thinking, if we turn this on its head and offer an essay competition, that's something that I can run off a laptop and reach the world that way.
Amazing,
Um,
amazing, amazing.
so
But I mean, it's one thing to have the idea, right? And then it's another thing actually visualizing how am I going to facilitate this and make it simple, effective, but impactful. How do you then go from idea to it being feasible?
the first thing I did is contact my friends. So my friend Rudy Easy has been my deputy for 15 years now, in Lexlead. He is a lawyer in Nigeria. I knew him through the International Bar Association. The other person I contacted was my friend Yev, who is Russian Ukrainian, lives in America. He lives in the United States. Both of them immediately, and we had a World Bank friend, Bert from Belgium. All these friends who immediately said, "That's great." They wanted in on that idea, and so that's where it started. As we started, we had a connection to the International Bar Association, but through the course of 2010, we worked out setting it up as it is, it's a New York corporation that's then got, the tax status. It's set up as a charity in the United States. So we had to get it set up with
Mhm.
bank accounts, and get it legally established in that year. And that's some of the underpinnings. A lot more of the work involves, how are we going to run this? How are we going to um, what's our formula for coming up with a new essay question each year? How do we, and so we just devised different systems. One of the things we inherited from the Global Challenge was a big mailing list that pre
That
GDPR, we
helps,
were
right?
able to just email everybody
Mhm.
off that mailing list to say, we're running this essay competition. Um, Please tell students. And that's how we got our very first students. And you build from that. We have a mailing list that we keep adding to, and that gets it out there. Then we've got social media, a couple of different platforms on social media, on Facebook and on LinkedIn. And so we can find people that way too. A lot of it these days, right from the beginning, after our first year at least, is a lot of it is word of mouth. Apparently, there are countries that are just waiting for Lexley to open each year. Yeah, so
Okay.
the students all talk to themselves and talk to each other and say, have you applied for Lex Lead yet? Have you got this done?
Yeah.
So it took
That's so
off like
lovely to hear,
wildfire.
right? To get that kind
Yeah.
of feedback. It really is.
And yeah, it's been a lot of fun hearing the stories as well from the students as to how it looks on their end, because here
Mm,
we are, I was in New York for at the time that we set it up, and then I moved to London, and so from my end of the screen, trying to you know put out the website so that everybody's got the same information. These are the rules to the competition,
mm,
registering the students, etc. I love hearing the stories from the other side of it, as to
definitely.
how they heard about it, when they sort of got their application in, things like that. So
Definitely. Getting that kind of, you know, fevered, excited response just tells you that it's working. And
yeah.
that's the whole point. You want to know that you're making an impact. The word's not going to spread if it wasn't good news. So that for me is just so endearing to hear. But I mean, just tell us a little bit more about the mechanics of the essay competitions. People hear essay competitions and then they hear $500 are awarded. So how do we
Right.
get from
And that's
essay
a lot of
competition?
what a lot of, if you boil it down to the essence, to sort of tell people what we're about,
Yeah,
um that's some of the basic information. Is like, here's the website, and here this is, $500 prize, $500 essay prizes, and that is enough to tell them, okay, am I interested or am I not interested? So then they'll go and read up on the details. They're just 5-page essays. You have to register for it. uh, they in registering, you basically just need to know that you are minimally eligible. That is, you need to be a registered student in one of the eligible countries, and you need to be from one of the eligible countries. You don't. All you need to do is tell us that at registration. It's only where, if you are a finalist, that we will check, but we do check because we don't know who we're dealing with until we've got a list of finalists, and then we go out and have to get documentation to show that the person really does exist
right.
as a person. And it's a lot of hurdles. It's not too difficult, because no, I don't think very, very many people are going to go to the effort of writing a winning essay and then not exist in the background. So we haven't, there aren't too many essays that we have not awarded, too many prizes we have not awarded because the person doesn't exist at the end. But it's still, we have to do our compliance on that end of it. One of the, I think the key bits of that is the registration. Is we just have a very simple system
Mhm.
for assigning the students a registration number that they have to use on their essays. You're not allowed to put your name or any personal information about yourself in the essay. The essay is supposed to be answering the particular question. And if there is any personal information in the essay, then it will be disqualified. It won't be considered, because we don't want the judges to be in a difficult situation where they could be in question for preferring this profile of person versus that kind of person. So if they don't know who they're reading, then everybody's better off.
Mm.
So
And I can vouch for that, might I say, as a judge. This is the ingenious thing about the way LexLead is set up. I literally will get the essay, as Anne says, the title at the top, a candidate number, and my job is to moderate the essay.
That's
I
the
have no
essay.
idea where the student's from,
Yeah.
male, female, which country, doesn't matter. So I
Their
come there with
religion,
a very
how they,
objective point
yeah,
of view.
anything
Mm,
that you could that could be a bias. The judges do not know. And the students also would have a very difficult time, even if they know, even if they do know one of the judges on their, if somebody from their university is leading it, even if the students know one person, they're not going to they've even if they happen to get that judge as one of their panel, and they don't know that they're going to do that even when they send in their essay, then they're certainly not going to know all three of the judges that assess their essay. So there are a lot of protections built in
sorry
for
to
it to
interrupt,
be a very
Anne.
fair process.
Absolutely. And yeah, and as I say, I can vouch for that. But has there been any situation where you've had issues with regards to possibly students or judges knowing each other? I wouldn't have
No,
thought.
but we have just thought about it to protect against that. We um, you know, obviously sometimes the students that haven't won aren't happy that they haven't won, and but yeah, that's why we've got such a solid, um, you know, there we have such a strong system.
Robust compliance
Yeah,
system
for
that just
saying
careful.
absolutely, you've got every right to challenge if you think this has been handled unfairly. So give us, by all means, we'll take it to the board if you think you've been treated unfairly, but you have to tell us where you
Right.
think, concretely why you think that you have somehow not been. And, the fact that the judges do not know, even if the student um, knows one of the panelists and has even gone and tried to jimmy the results by telling their somebody that they know on the panel, like, hey, I'm sending in, this is my essay number, this is my candidate number, this is, so look out for my essay. Obviously they're going to be disqualified if they've done that. So they can't, they're not going to come to us and say, well, I did this. And I know that so and so, but yeah, it's, we handle, any time that there is a concern, obviously we try to be as very fair, as very transparent, and as very, kind about it, because we know that people that have hurt feelings,
Mm.
if they aren't successful, especially if they've tried several times and not been successful.
And it's interesting that
Um,
you mentioned that. Yeah. So you have students, you have repeat students who will come back and enter
Many
the
repeat
competition
students.
time and time again, right?
And the good news on that is quite a lot of the time, the students that maybe they don't get it the first year, but if they try it a couple of times more, we've got a very good average of people, ending up getting an award.
Mm, that's amazing. And this is the thing, the award is $500. Yeah, to you and I, we're very fortunate to be on this side of the globe. But in countries that fall into that category, least developed countries in the world, £5, $5 makes a difference, let alone $500.
Yeah.
So you can understand why competition can be keen, why the word is spreading like wildfire. And like you say, it's going around by word of mouth. I mean, that's just so endearing to hear because these days, a lot of people kind of think, well, if you're not on social media, if you're not shouting about it from the rooftop, forget about it. But no, actually, you are doing some amazing work in that very old-fashioned sense, actually, in terms of getting the word out there, word of mouth, which is proven to be such a powerful tool. I find that phenomenal. I
Yeah,
really
and
do.
it makes a big difference. We put out in the newsletter each year, we sort of map out that it can pay, in some countries it can pay as much as an entire year's tuition.
Mm,
It certainly goes, yeah, it
does matter.
does.
It goes a long way.
In other countries, it maybe pays a semester of their
Yeah.
tuition. It certainly makes a significant difference.
Definitely, not to be sneezed at.
Yeah.
So take us through, and people will be curious, how does the moderation come about? So we receive the essays. what is the briefing that we get as judges in terms of how we can mark fairly to ensure that we get those winners?
We have a blurb that we have a run through that Simone knows about that characterizes like if you think so we sort of do it throughout the American system of if you think that the essay is well written, uses good examples, um, it's a decent level. It doesn't need to be perfect English, but it's certainly the English is, and it is only offered in English, which is something we've also thought about at different times. But if the level of language is sufficient to be able to get there to be able to argue the point well, the examples are appropriate there, etc. You might consider if this is one of the top essays, you might consider somewhere between 90 and 100 points for this essay. If it's somewhat less structured, maybe the examples are less relevant, etc. So we have a run through that we give the judges that gives them an idea of like all the way down to if there's really not very much structure to the essay, the examples aren't relevant, then you might consider a grade, below 50 on these. And so we get the moderation is at least three judges, and they're all assessing the essays independently.
Mhm.
So as Simone knows, the emails go out on the 1st of January with the packet of essays attached to that. All of the
Mm.
judges are in BCC so that they're not supposed to talk to each other either, because we want their own independent views as to
Yeah.
the quality of the essay. Um, so we don't want we we literally will take that number, the another judge's number, the third number, and just mathematically come up with the average from that, and that's how it's decided. The only factor that contributes, that controls beyond that, is if the compliance committee that is working at the same time, and this is all in January each year, if the compliance committee finds that the essay is not, if there is plagiarism, if there's other sort of non-conformity involved, then however good the judges think that the essay is, it will be disqualified.
Mm.
And then that's what we've got on our chart is when we get the grades and everything back, is
Mm.
we sort of let people, then that essay is not considered further.
I mean, if I can, I will just briefly read out from the marking criteria that you mentioned, just to give people an idea. This is how well thought out Anne she's taken the time to ensure that students are truly rewarded for exceptional work. And she's broken it down into categories. So, like she said, between 90 and 100 points, which would be an excellent essay. It says the essay is cogent, well articulated, and analyzes the complexities of the issues as well as can be expected within the constraints of this competition. It develops a position on the issue using insightful reactions and or persuasive examples. The student demonstrates maturity, logical thinking, and sound ethical values. And it goes on. And the next category below that, which is just to give you an idea, give you a flavor, which is 80 to 89 points, and that will be determined as a good essay. The essay presents a well-developed analysis of the issue and demonstrates good control of the elements of effective writing. The student strikes you as logical and ethical. Reasons and examples are generally well chosen and organization is well done. The paper demonstrates clear control of English, good vocabulary, and clear, understandable grammar and usage. And, I've always just been blown away by this. And Anne knows that I'm a bit of a grammar geek. And the interesting thing is sometimes you'd have students who will be pretty sound, they'll have the knowledge there, but maybe their grasp of English grammar is not as great. So somebody like me might be a little bit harsh, for instance. But the ingenious thing behind Anne's setup is that there are two other judges who will also be moderating with me. So somewhere along the lines, there'll be somebody who may not be as harsh as me, for instance. And at some point, among the three of us, we'll come to a happy medium. So she will get all the marks, and then they'll have the average, right?
Yeah.
I think it's amazing.
I
Such
will
a
give credit for that there was a program that I was supporting, a university program, and that's, so I had seen anyway. I didn't write all of that myself.
But
I sort
even
of dropped
so, I
in.
mean, yeah, I mean, the fact is, you could recognize that this is a system that needs to be adopted, right?
I certainly thought it was a when I came across that, I certainly thought it was a very good way of um, giving the judges a really good handle on how to give credit here, but not, maybe somewhat less somewhere else.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, whatever the judge thinks the essay is worth, that's what they give it.
Mm. I mean, there could have been a parallel system where you just have a judge marking an essay and it's just one judge, one essay. Do you know what I mean? But I think the way that you have set it up, that brings into the scenario an element of fairness, an element of, equality. It's balanced. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's almost
and
like a jury system where you're going to have some kind of consensus
really
without it
helps the
conferring with each other.
student, as well. It's a good system for having as the to have as the background behind the awards as well, for the student to feel really good about what they've achieved through that. And another thing that to mention about the judges is that we try to get so each we will have at least three judges on each essay, and we won't have three women, we won't have three men, we won't have three of the same national, we won't even have two of the same nationality. We try to have as much of a representation of around the world on legal and geographic backgrounds in on our panel of judges as we possibly can. And again, the balance between the genders, etc. So that's how we put together our teams each year is try to, yeah.
Yeah, to keep it nice and balanced. Absolutely. Absolutely. The other thing that strikes me about the way it's organized is every year you manage to come up with an innovative title. So, if I may, I'm going to just quickly read today's title. Is that okay? This year's
Yes.
title, rather. And it says, so the essay question is, how can laws regulating climate change and the environment support economic development? How do you think about these issues?
Right. And that's all we give the students is like, you can answer this any way you like. Um, but yeah, that's all we, we don't provide anything other than here's your title, go. You've got 5 pages to analyze, to put these two concepts together.
And that's a great thing because really what you're doing is you're getting them to think on their feet. They have absolutely no idea what's going to come before the 1st of January, right? And yeah, you stretch their imaginations, you get them to, yeah, climate change. Climate change in a continent like Africa, we know it's not necessarily going to be high on their agenda, let's face it. But yet here in the West, it's a completely different, it's a completely different thinking when it comes to climate change. It's a lot more, I don't know what's the word. It's a zeitgeist topic, yes. But in Africa, they have other pressing issues that they're dealing with, poverty and, health and what have you. But this is forcing them to up their game. It forces them to
I
to
think
go
they
out and
could have, we might have some very good answers. We've had a lot of drought in different parts, a lot in lots of parts of Africa in the last 10 years and more. There have been big floods in different parts in the last year or so. There's lots of soil erosion in places like Benin. There are countries that absolutely might say there might be some very good arguments about climate change having an adverse impact on the ability for the economies to get a good footing. So we'll see what they argue.
yeah.
But Yeah, and I hope there's some really good analysis about the challenges facing the climate change people, the climate change conferences we've had around the world, because people keep trying to set targets and then that isn't adhered to that well.
Mm.
It's there are lots of challenges at the international level as well in terms of trying to even come up with frameworks to deal with it.
There are.
So
And here's the interesting thing. I often find when I read these essays, I learn a thing or two. I'll be reading the essays and thinking to myself, I hadn't thought of that, or I wasn't aware that this was going on in, whichever country it might be, in Africa, what have you. And so the judges are gaining as much as the students.
yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing. It's a kind of all-round mutual beneficial setup, which I love. I'm really,
In
really keen
theory,
that.
in theory, it isn't. Although we've had most of our essays, most of our students have been African. We're actually open to Asia. There's about 15 countries across Asia, Asia Pacific as well, and there's one in the Americas, Haiti, that we keep trying to reach out to because we want to involve them in the essay competition as well. So fingers crossed we will get. We've had a number of applicants this year from Bangladesh, and I'd be really pleased to start seeing,
Yeah.
essays across the this whole, yeah, across these countries.
So when you mention you keep trying to reach out to the likes of Haiti, how does that look? What's the mode of?
People that we know, that we come across, we say now Haiti is French speaking, that makes it more. We have had a lot less success with Francophone countries and countries that speak Portuguese or Spanish as their adopted language.
Mm,
Um, we have had a lot more success from the countries that inherited English, because we haven't got the capacity to offer the competition, to have judges to be able to package out, to distribute the essays out to,
mm,
okay, here are the French speaking ones, so we'll have a French speaking panel of judges, and we haven't got the capacity to offer it in more than the one language.
mm,
But that means we've had a lot more success with the English speaking countries than we have had with Francophone or other countries. So we have yet to have applicants from Haiti, which is a shame. I would like to be able to support Haiti,
mm,
but it
mm,
needs to. We have to get the essays in English, unfortunately.
mhm. And I mean, I'll go on at the end to, just let others know how to engage, where they can find you, because you do utilize, social media, like you mentioned before, Facebook and LinkedIn. And of course, there's your website, which looks amazing, by the way. I know you're always tweaking it and, refining it, and it's looking really good right now. But just very quickly, Anne, I'd like people to know you have you've really done some fantastic work with LexLead since its inception in 2010, and where it is now compared to where it was back then, we can see how much it's grown. Where do you see it going maybe in the next 2010 to now, 14 years, maybe in the next 5, 10 years?
Well, I really like getting higher and higher numbers of people that have won the award. That makes me feel good. So we obviously want to continue with that. We have we've been offering internships for quite a while now, and it would be nice to be able to expand that to, we offer about three to four internships a year, depending on who we're able to line up, and we fund most of them. We've got a couple of outfits that will bring on a LexLead a student themselves, and pay the student. Um, but then the other ones we are providing a stipend. So it would be nice to offer even more internships. And another program that we're trying to institute is to offer an annual lecture, which in addition to just as a means of bringing everybody together once a year, we're trying to offer an annual lecture that we have been in conversation with the World Bank for they have Law, Justice, and Development Week.
Amazing.
So if we can bring one of our judges a year over to Washington to deliver that lecture,
Mm.
that would be fun. That
That
would be
would
pretty
be
amazing.
fantastic for sure. Um, what I also wanted to find out from you, for anyone watching this video who wants to share the word, get involved, I mean, what would you say to them? What would your call to action be to get the word out there?
It's all on the website, LexLead, lex-lead.org. That's also got the links to the Facebook page and the LinkedIn group. It is open to, we call them Lex Lead countries. That is the least developed countries, but it's we want them to be just known that as Lex Lead countries, as our countries. That's so it isn't. There are countries that are not eligible for it. Uh, there's a good 50, approximately 50 countries that are eligible, and we want to make it at least reach every single one of those countries before we consider any other elements to it. So we will take registrations, and if you want to get involved in other ways, we we have an advisory board. We're happy to bring on people for that level too.
Amazing,
So
amazing. And I could talk to you forever about this. I am so passionate about the work that you do, greatly admire all your efforts and your sheer, um, what's the word? Yeah, your sheer passion and commitment to the cause. I cannot wait, actually, to see the essays this year to get stuck in. And I will be sharing the details with this post, with this video, so people can get involved. The website details will be there. And we would just urge people, yes, to like the video, to share the word. All it takes, like we were saying earlier on, is word of mouth to just mention it to a friend who might mention it to another friend, and you just never know who you could be impacting. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do.
yeah,
So, and I think I may well have to bring you back on this platform just to keep the readers, just to keep the viewers engaged, and so they know how things are progressing with Lex Lead. But honestly, heartfelt, thank you so much for coming on and for sharing your story and for telling us about Lex Lead.
thank you. I can say Asante Sana in Swahili. Amaseganalo in Ethiopian, Amharic in Ethiopian. Got a few other ones I can say it into.
Russian?
It's Spasiba, but that's not one of our